Papua is very much the most remote part of Indonesia. It's the kind of easternmost province. It's on the New Guinea island, which is kind of actually divided in half. So you've got the western side of this island, which is kind of part of Indonesia, and then on the eastern side is like a separate country, Papua New Guinea or PNG, people refer to it, and that's kind of independent. And you don't actually cross the boundary there; like they're kind of totally separate, even though it's the same island. Um, but these guys are like very different to the rest of Indonesia. Indonesia is kind of quite a developing country, and like the middle classes are up and coming, and they're taking more like vacations, and you can just sort of see the wealth kind of moving into the country there. But Papua is very different in that it's Indonesia kind of keeps a cap on it because there's a few kind of resources there which they're quite interested in, and so the local indigenous people before kind of the Western world and kind of came along, they just subsistence farmed. They would just live off the land and growing vegetables primarily, um, occasionally eating like birds or wild boar and this kind of thing, but mostly vegetarian and just sustained within the little villages. And then sort of along comes the aircraft and then starts linking these kind of towns into each other. And the development's been massive for these guys because obviously a lot of things have come in from abroad and influenced their life. I mean, before I think the first for want of a better word, of kind of all these tribes was kind of in the 1920s. Funnily enough, with the Catalina actually.
Really?
So yeah, it's Catalina was actually the very first aircraft that landed on a lake. This kind of anthropologist, Archibald, I can't remember his first name. He was really interested in kind of exploring this part of the world. But before that, the local Papuans, they hadn't even invented like the wheel. They were they figured out fire, but yeah, like the wheel, that wasn't a thing. So they just didn't really travel very far. And so yeah, in that kind of what we are now, like 100 years later, it's been hugely different now. There's some of these people have learned to fly aircraft. They're actually pilots nowadays.
Really? Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, the kind of development is just absolutely insane when you can consider it. Within a few generations, they've gone from no wheels to flying airplanes.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever read, so there's a you ever heard of Jared Diamond? He,
No, I'm not.
he wrote a really good book called Guns, Germs, and Steel, but one of the things he was like a social anthropologist, and he spent a lot of time out in Papua New Guinea and Papua and stuff like that, and I mean, the amount of so I mean, one, there's like thousands of tribes, right? There's thousands of different languages, and then I mean, from my understanding, they don't do this as much anymore, but there still might be parts. But like, is there still like cannibalism and stuff? I mean, because they were known for that at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially down in the lowlands, it did go on until, I mean, relatively recently. As far as I'm aware, it kind of stopped in like the 80s, I want to say, somewhere around then, like probably a couple of generations ago. But yeah, I mean, it was a thing, and I think famously, and certainly in Papua, there was one of the missionaries. Kind of, he's a pilot nowadays, but I think one of his parents got eaten or something, or there was some kind of like story going on there. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's certainly in recent enough history that it was known, amongst some of the kind of people working out there that it was potential. But yeah, not these days. I think all of the kind of the missionary influence out there has kind of educated them that this is maybe not the way to kind of survive, as it were. And so, yeah, it doesn't really happen these days.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, there was, and I think this was through the missionary work, was they had kind of discovered that there was this disease that they were getting called kuru. I don't know if that ever came up out, but they basically it's almost like the version of mad cow disease. When mad cow disease is like when they were feeding the cows to the other cows as meal, but the brain is very toxic or whatever and causes this disease. And they were getting this from doing the cannibalism. And then so I believe there was a missionary and stuff like that that they were like kind of really trying to educate them that like this was causing major issues and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I mean, like I've heard of that, but yeah, it kind of makes sense, I guess. Because yeah, that's how it all kind of started back in. Yeah, I mean, obviously, Britain, we've had issues with mad cow in the past, but yeah, I don't think we were eating people.
no, 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 definitely not. Um, so I guess All right. So then, are you predominantly, are all like, is all your flights just on Papua? Or are you also flying out to Kalimantan, Sumatra, Sulawesi, any of them? Or are they all focused primarily? And are you mainly in the lowlands? Are you up in the highlands? What's,
So yeah, when I was there, like as I sort of said, as a co-pilot, you kind of moved around. So I got to fly the caravan at least in like Kalimantan and Sumatra, Java, and a little bit in Sulawesi, quite a bit in Timor actually, like NTT, around all the kind of Flores Isles around that beautiful part of Indonesia actually. But it was Papua that where I kind of fell in love with just like the whole kind of chaos of it, the whole kind of edginess, the kind of final frontier of like civilization style. Like, yeah, I got a real kick out of it, and so that's kind of where I focused everything, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to fly the Porter, and I wanted to fly it there specifically. During my time as caravan, which was only 2 years on the caravan, basically just kept hounding the chief pilot of the Pilatus fleet to say, "Hey, look, I really want to fly these things." Uh, Eventually, gave me the shot at it, and but yeah, even like after that, like I couldn't go straight out to Papua because it's pretty challenging, pretty dangerous stuff. So I was initially based in northern Kalimantan, out of like Malinau, Tarakan, up in the north there. And we used to kind of nickname it like Papua Light because I think the highest peak there was like 10,000 feet, something like that. So if you flew at 11,000, you wouldn't crash into anything. Whereas Papua, there's plenty of things to hit at 11,000 feet.
yeah, I think the
And it
top
just
16, right? It's, I think 16.
Yeah, yeah. Punjak Jaya is 16,000 snow capped. It's got a glacier on it, so it's always snow, which is also a wild thing to see when you're sort of taking off from the lowlands where it would be like 30 degrees plus Celsius, hot and sweaty, and then you just get up there and then there's snow everywhere, which is always quite an extreme contrast. But to kind of build the experience before going to Papua, yeah, flying in Kalimantan was quite good. Just got used to kind of handling the Porter because whilst you got kind of trained how to fly the thing, you need experience. You need to kind of build up. You need to screw up, make a few messes of the stuff, and just figure stuff out basically. And so I spent a year doing that up in Kalimantan before eventually going to Papua, and then yeah, that's kind of where the real crazy flying was, and mostly the highlands. That's where I like flying. Up in Wamena and all along the kind of central spine there. There's like a whole load of just almost an unlimited number of airstrips. It was just incredible.
That's pretty amazing. So, okay, so you were able to cut your teeth on basically the lowland area and stuff like that, where you can, there's more forgiveness in making some errors and stuff like that. And then you get up into the highlands. So that's obviously where it starts to get much more exciting. So when you were first, I mean, obviously you're co-pilot and stuff like that. For how long were you a co-pilot up in, doing up in the mountains and stuff like that in the highlands?
So I actually had really little experience because with the caravans, as a co-pilot, you moved around. So I had like, I guess it was like 4 months, I suppose. I probably must have spent total time as a co-pilot in Papua on the caravan, before then moving away and then got upgraded to captain. And then obviously wasn't going to Papua straight away. And so I kind of spent time in Sumatra mostly, and then Timor. I spent a lot of time in Timor, and Timor was quite fun. It's just a lot of island hopping with massive crosswinds because it's quite far south, so you end these kind of trade winds. And weirdly, all the runways were kind of perpendicular to these winds for whatever reason. So you just ended up landing caravan with like 35, 40 knot crosswinds, which was always
Amazing.
quite good fun.
Yeah.
You got quite good at like just sticking a wheel down on the upwind side of the runway and just hoiking it down and just getting it on the ground.
I mean, what's your alignment on like crabbing over for that, right?
That's wild. Yeah, yeah. You'd be looking out the side window as coming down. It was, yeah, you got pretty slick with crosswinds. And I loved it actually. Timor was good fun, but obviously it was kind of a means to an end to get on the Porter, and then yeah, Porter single pilot from there on in. So once I was, a couple of weeks training on the Porter, it was here's a plane, don't wreck it, and tried a few times, got close, but yeah, as I kind of said, that Kalimantan, the runways are a little bit bigger, a little bit wider, a little bit longer. It just kind of allowed you to kind of make a few screw-ups without causing yourself or anything else any damage before going out to Papua, where as soon as you're landing in mountains, that's like was one of the biggest differences. Just is that kind of combination of the density altitude. You're just flying, you're flying at an airspeed of 60 knots, say, but like you can just see that you're landing at like 80 knots or something just because of that density altitude. And then you throw in like anabatic winds, which just give you these tailwinds to come in on as well. Uh, and then, yeah, you're landing with pretty significant ground speed compared to if you're landing at sea level, which took some getting used to.
Yeah, I mean, because most of the time, pilots try to always fly. Yeah, I mean, if you have a runway, right, you typically, worst case, like you can come from either direction, right? So you always typically, oh, okay, I'll just go around from the other side, come in, into the wind, right? But
Yeah.
for you, like, I mean, the mountain can't move, the runway can't move. So like, if the winds are at your back, like that's, I mean, that's like most people wouldn't fly in that way, but you guys have to, and you have to do it on the edge of a cliff and a mountain.
Yeah, so I mean, we kind of mitigated it. So these kind of mountain ones, they were generally obviously upsloping, so you'd always be landing up hills basically. But because of that, of course, this is where the anabatic wind's coming in because it's always going up a slope. Um, but first thing in the morning when the sun comes up, the winds are non-existent. There's barely any wind at all because the anabatic winds only cause once the sun starts heating the land up and reducing the density, and then that's how it kind of starts. So as long as you kind of got those ones out of the way first thing. So we would even get airborne at sunrise. It'd still be dark as you got airborne from kind of home base. And then you get out to these strips just at first light, and you do the really short, steep ones quickly because what sunrise? Sunrise is like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and so probably by 10 o'clock it's starting to get a bit windy. And a lot of those strips you just don't want much of a tailwind. But as the day progressed, sometimes you go to the larger ones. There was some which are kind of stacked away with, maybe 600 meters or something. And you could go in with like 15 knot tailwind or something like that, depending. Um, and yeah, basically you just kind of planned your day accordingly, depending on, where you were going to go and what you needed to get done. And sometimes you just have to, sack it off and go, well, it's just got too windy too soon. So we'll try again tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and you guys, I mean, I think another thing that I guess is a bit different that you guys would do is, do you guys typically come in and do like a scouting? So like you'll kind of do a flyby, scope out and see, is my angle of attack correct? Like, is my flight path correct? Is it, or even is there people on the runway? Like, what's your approach initially coming in?
Yeah, I mean, so certainly somebody maybe hadn't been very much before, so you wanted to kind of get a lay of the land. So yeah, you circle overhead. It also lets anybody on the ground know that you're probably going to land there, so they kind of get out the way because most of them don't have a radio or anything. So you go overhead. Also there would be people on the runway because runway is kind of the biggest bit of land on like the whole village, big clear bit of land. They'd often just be using it to, I don't know, just play football or whatever. And so by circling, you kind of get them out the way. But it'll give you a little heads up as to how the terrain was all sloping, because with a lot of these ones, what happened is the runway would be kind of down the end of a valley, say slightly, so you might end up kind of getting quite low amongst the terrain, and so you get committed to landing quite far out. Like a lot of people just ask me this kind of thing, like, "Oh, how'd you like? Why don't you just go around?" And it's like, well, if you're landing uphill, generally in front of you is high terrain, so sometimes you can just kind of quickly sweep it around, but if it's in a valley, sometimes there's terrain all around you. And if you've got heavily laden aircraft, you're coming in with 900 kgs of cargo on board. The climb performance isn't so good. The terrain's climbing faster than that aircraft's able to outclimb. So there comes a point where you've sort of descended a little bit into a slight valley or something, and you can't outclimb any terrain around you, nor can you turn it around in the space available. So you get the only option is to land, basically. So
You're fully committed.
yeah, you fully commit to it. So, you know, the biggest hazard was mostly the weather. Quite a lot of these, whilst you look at the YouTube pictures and everything, they're always like the nice sunny days because it looks pretty. But a lot of the days weren't nice and sunny. They were super cloudy with maybe rain halfway down the valley, or kind of fog rolling in up from the down below or whatever. And sort of picking your way through that safely, visually, because you don't. There's no instrument approaches, and you'd be crazy to try and land off some kind of GPS approach or something into one of these places. And so you just become acutely aware of your aircraft's performance and how much space you're going to need if you do want to bin it off. How far can I go into that valley before I have to bail out, or make the landing, one or other? You kind of just have to kind of make these decisions as you're going along, really.
If you're new to the show or haven't subscribed yet, click the like and subscribe button below as it helps with the algorithm so you'll be notified when new and exciting episodes come out.